Just when Apple thought they'd set the new benchmark with the HomePod 2, Sonos have hit right back with their new Era speakers and given us one hell of a comparison video. We've got 3 speakers from 2 big brands and only room for one winner. Or is there? I guess you have to wait and see. Now, if you're a fan of the channel, you might have already seen our HomePod 2 versus Sonos One Gen 2 video and our HomePod 2 pair versus Sonos Beam Gen 2 comparison. But you guys have been demanding even more HomePod versus Sonos content, so we're here to deliver. Now, I'd love it if you guys could get down in the comments and let me know which of these 3 come out on top for you. And if you already own any of these products, then please share your experiences too. So let's start by giving you guys a very quick rundown. The HomePod 2 is Apple's revived flagship smart speaker with a 4-inch woofer and 5 tweeters built in to offer multi-directional 360-degree sound. The Sonos Era 100, an evolution of the popular Sonos One Gen 2, has been designed to deliver more bass and a wider stereo soundstage with 2 angled tweeters and a 25% larger woofer, all powered by 3 Class D amps. Having already compared the HomePod 2 to the Sonos One Gen 2, it's going to be really interesting to see how much the upgrades in the Era 100 change this comparison, especially as it's still the most affordable option. As a brand new entry into the Sonos lineup, the Era 300 is a first for Sonos. With 4 tweeters and 2 woofers projecting sound in all directions and powered by 6 Class D amplifiers, this is the first Sonos speaker capable of producing Dolby Atmos spatial audio that fires from the front, sides and upwards. And as a larger speaker and coming in at a higher price point, we are expecting this speaker to offer a more impressive performance, but my job today is working out whether it's impressive enough for the extra money. Now, all of these speakers can be used as a standalone speaker or in a stereo pair. The 2 options from Sonos can also be used as rears to a Sonos soundbar. The Apple HomePod 2 is the only option out of the 3 that has been specifically designed to work as TV speakers if you connect them up to an Apple TV 4K. Now, we have seen people looking to connect the Era speakers to a TV via Bluetooth, and yes, that is a workaround, but neither are designed for that specific purpose. So you won't get pairing with your remote or support for any Dolby codecs and things like that. For Sonos, you need a soundbar to do that. Now, as we can see, these speakers come in at different price points, so that's definitely something to factor in with this comparison. But I'm looking at the overall package today, including price, because while sound quality is the #1 priority, a market-leading smart speaker has to tick a lot of other boxes as well. As we've always said, Apple and Sonos are pretty closely aligned in terms of design. Their minimalistic approach and sleek, stylish products bring a definite premium feel, and these 3 speakers are no different. All are available in black or white variations, and both brands clearly agree that monochrome is obviously the way forward, but admittedly, there are some obvious differences like material choice and top panel control variations, but broadly speaking, they all fall into that compact lifestyle speaker category. The Era 100 and HomePod offer a very similar footprint and form factor. They both feel pretty unobtrusive, and I'm actually a big fan of them both for different reasons. Although I love the intuitiveness of Sonos' new touch capacitive controls and volume slider, the HomePod 2's top panel does just edge it for me in terms of pure visuals. Now, personally, I love a white speaker, but I do worry that the HomePod would look a little bit grubby over time. So the wraparound grille on the Era 100 feels like it will stay looking nicer for longer. Now, you clearly don't need to be Sherlock Holmes to pick out the red herring here. Although still designed with minimalism at heart, the Era 300 is definitely unique to say the least. It's the more imposing speaker of the trio, and like a lot of people, I was skeptical of the design at first, but to be honest with you guys, since getting my hands on it, I've really grown to like it. Now, sure, it's bigger and shaped like nothing that I've ever seen before, but after a day or two, I didn't really think about the design again, and from head on, it's actually quite subtle. Now, one thing to highlight though is you do need to be a little bit more mindful of placement with this one to avoid impacting performance, so you couldn't tuck it on a bookshelf, for example. Now, to be honest, I'd be happy having any of these in my home, and they're versatile enough to work in most spaces. Design is so personal that I can't call which would be top for you, but please let me know down in the comments which design is your favorite. Right then, on to their features and functionality, and look, there's 3 speakers here, so it's going to be a little bit of a whistle-stop tour, but if you really want to dive into these new speakers, we've got dedicated reviews on all of them on our channel, which are probably the best place to start if you're coming in cold. Starting with what we already know though, Sonos and Apple both have pretty different mindsets when it comes to their ecosystems. We've mentioned it in previous videos, but Apple is a little bit of a members-only club in the sense that Apple products work brilliantly with other Apple products, but if you want to add something a little different to your system, then you're going to struggle. The fact that you can't even set this speaker up with an Android phone is just a prime example of that. So to give you a quick rundown though, the HomePod 2 can be set up via the Apple Home app, and we've also got Siri Voice Assistant and AirPlay 2 for control. Now, we haven't got Spotify Connect, and yes, I am a Spotify user, so that's a particular bugbear for me with this speaker. Now, Siri is also not my favorite voice assistant either, and although AirPlay 2 will let me connect my iPhone and play almost anything I want, you are limited by your phone's battery, for example, and if it dies, there goes the music. Now, there are some cool features that come with being part of the Apple ecosystem though, and if you're well immersed with an Apple Watch, Mac, iPhone and whatever else you've got, it all syncs up and works well together. Features like Find My Friends and Connect in Your Calendar are great, plus there are new sensors in this HomePod that detect the surrounding temperature and can trigger smart features like adjusting your thermostat. Sonos, on the other hand, are pretty well known for having a more inclusive ecosystem, and the Era 100 and 300 offer even more connectivity options than any of their previous speakers. They've both got Wi-Fi 6, AirPlay 2, Spotify Connect, and the option of voice control with either Sonos Voice or Amazon Alexa. And as far as music goes, you can connect almost everything. So Tidal Connect, things like that. You've got support for 99 plus services via the Sonos S2 app, and you've also got Sonos Radio on there too. Now, because of some internal issues between the companies, there's no Google Assistant, but we're hoping that that's going to change with a software update a little later down the line. Sonos have also finally given us Bluetooth 5.0 compatibility with the Era range, which, albeit not the latest Bluetooth connection, is still plenty good enough, especially considering neither of these are really built to be taken on the go. Both of them also have the capability for a line-in connection too, with a USB-C line-in, which is another box tick. But just a heads up, you will need to purchase the separate adapter to get that to work. But for those looking to connect a turntable, this is a good solution. Now, as mentioned with Sonos, you have a lot of control in the Sonos S2 app, which gives us the option to stream directly from the music server and group different zones of music around the home. Now, one thing that I really do want to mention is Matter. The HomePod 2 is Matter compatible and a Matter thread router, which means that it can act as the bridge to your smart home. Now, Sonos are registered with Matter, but there's been no confirmation of those being active or being a Matter thread router, so that could be a swaying factor for you. I think this is probably a topic for another day, but something that I wanted to flag for those interested in Matter moving forwards. Now, this wouldn't be an Era versus HomePod showdown if we didn't talk about spatial audio, but unfortunately that does take the Era 100 out of the conversation, as it doesn't offer support for spatial audio, so I guess we'll get rid of that one for now. Previously, support for spatial audio via a speaker was exclusive for the HomePod, but the Era 300 is now a second option for those looking for that experience. Now, Sonos have just launched support for Apple Music spatial audio, and you also have support for Amazon Music on this speaker too. To get Dolby Atmos audio from Apple Music on a speaker, there has to be a direct connection with the Apple servers and not via Bluetooth or AirPlay, which initially was only possible with the HomePod 2. But because Sonos have a direct connection with Apple's servers via the S2 app, these two speakers are now the only options on the market right now with Apple Music spatial audio access natively. Now, obviously, if you've got Amazon Music, then you're covered too with the Era 300, but if we're talking mainstream access, this is pretty big news. Spotify users, don't worry, I'm with you on this one. We're still missing from the spatial audio discussion, but if I had to hazard a guess, I can't see them ignoring it for much longer. I've had plenty of time listening to all sorts of Dolby Atmos tracks, and it honestly just feels like they're really missing a trick with this one. It's a completely different audio experience, and I can see this being the future for how we experience our music. So let's keep our fingers crossed, as it would be great if this experience was made more accessible for everyone to enjoy. Right, let's see how these speakers sound then. For the last few weeks, I've been testing out all of these in various different setups with different types of content, and I have got a lot of thoughts. But first, let's give you a little listen. So, usual disclaimer that what you hear over YouTube won't be exactly what you're hearing when we head over to the studio, and due to copyright, I can't share any Dolby Atmos tracks with you, which is a little bit of a shame, but this should give you a little flavour of what to expect.
running low. Tears keep on falling, the nighttime is ours. Oh, won't you running low? Tears keep on falling, the nighttime is ours. Oh.
Kicking off with standalone performance from a single speaker then, and when it came to the Era 100 versus the HomePod 2, things were a lot closer than I expected. Now, I've said before how impressed by the warm and rich sound of the HomePod 2 I've been, and I think it offers a powerful low-end performance. The way it quickly adapts to its environment and delivers a great performance at high volume to really fill those larger spaces was another massive plus for me. But when I say Sonos have really closed the gap with this one, I genuinely mean it. You can definitely see all the hard work that's gone into the Era 100 to improve on the Sonos One Gen 2, which is still a great speaker for us. It's just clear that this is a notable upgrade. The bigger bass and wider soundstage that we were all expecting with this speaker is definitely there, and 100% makes it hard to pick a winner between the two in either of those departments. I still think the HomePod offers a slightly more powerful performance and louder bass, but I think that the bass is tighter and more refined on the Era 100, and the mid-range vocals and nuances are better on the Era. I think the distinction between the two will come down to your own listening preferences. If you're looking for as much bang for your buck in terms of power, I'd still go for the HomePod. Plus, I do think it does a better job of placing elements of a track around you for a more immersive effect. But if you're looking for a more refined musical option, then I'd suggest Era 100. Now, to be totally honest, the Era 300 blows them both out of the water, and I mean, as it should. It's an extra £150, £200, but this speaker is brilliant for Dolby Atmos tracks, delivering great separation and creating a very realistic 3D space. Now, due to the larger form factor and added power, it well outperforms the HomePod, and to be honest, it is in a league of its own compared with these other two speakers. Now, if you're familiar with the Sonos 5, this Era 300 doesn't quite reach those levels of power and bass, but the separation and details are punching well above their weight. Even for regular tracks, the soundstage is impressively wide, and it never sounds like the performance is coming from the speaker alone. And for all content, vocals are projected forwards from this front-firing tweeter to give that cliche effect of it feeling like the artist is performing live in the room with you. Now, we've seen a few shots fired Apple's way from some big names at Sonos for not getting the most out of spatial audio with the design of the HomePod 2. And I'm not going to lie, I thought it was all just a little bit of handbags. But having put these speakers head to head, I can see that Sonos have shown Apple how it's done with this speaker. And who knows, maybe Apple will bring out a bigger HomePod to try and compete on this level. So standalone performance is one thing, but how do they stack up as a stereo pair for music? As I know that this will be a very common question. Well, if we start with the 100s versus HomePod 2, again, as a pair, I'd probably say that the HomePods felt like they provided the larger sound and wider soundstage. The HomePods probably had it for me in terms of low-end performance too, for that instantly impressive power. And again, I think they do a great job of placing effects around the room. The benefit of getting Atmos tracks via the HomePod, if that's what you're after, is worth it for that effect alone. But when it came to vocals and detailing, again, a pair of Era 100s are the better option. I think if you're looking for an accurate representation of your music and Dolby Atmos spatial audio isn't something you're too bothered about, then the overall performance of two Era 100s will be the better option. If it's power you're after and you do want to experience the effects of an Atmos track, then two HomePods are better for you. But once again, the Era 300 stole the show for a stereo pair. The separation and layering was in a different class and really took the whole experience to the next level. You guys know I listen to a lot of music, but genuinely, even the tracks I rinse and repeat felt like I was hearing something new every single time. There was better stereo imaging and it really felt like the audio was all encompassing. The bass was impressively accurate and deep too, so there's no complaints there. I feel as if my head and heart are on slightly different wavelengths right now. On the one hand, I'm a music lover. My heart is definitely telling me to go for a pair of Era 300s, having heard how great they sound. But at £900 for a pair, which is almost double the cost of the other two options, they certainly aren't cheap. cheap, and I know for a lot of people, this is going to be a big stumbling block. And to be honest, I don't blame you. I think this setup is the sort of thing that sits in that luxury department, and it's certainly not a need, but a want. Now, I know a lot of you guys have been wanting to know how these three compare when it comes to TV and film audio too, and to be fair, this is where the HomePod 2s are pretty unique. Capable of working as TV speakers when connected via HDMI eARC with an Apple TV 4K, you can use a pair of these for all of your TV audio. Now you'll get the flexibility of placement with two speakers as opposed to a single soundbar, for example, and a much wider soundstage that will be better suited to TV screens larger than 65-inch at a similar price point to something like a Sonos Beam Gen 2. Neither eras are capable of doing the same thing, at least not right now anyway, and although the eras can be used as rears in a surround sound system, they can't work as both dedicated music and TV speakers as seamlessly as the HomePod 2s can, so this is a pretty big box ticked for Apple here. Now in terms of actual TV audio performance, we've been left impressed by the HomePods. They delivered a really wide soundstage and brought great immersion for your content, especially Atmos movies. Bass is pretty great from this pair and the stereo imaging is brilliant, and the HomePods do a fantastic job of that virtual center speaker. It definitely doesn't feel like the sound is coming from two separate speakers. To find out more results from our testing of this setup, go and check out our HomePod versus Beam video, as that goes into far more depth for you guys. Don't get me wrong though, both the Era 100 and 300 can take your TV and films to the next level, but these were designed to be rear speakers in a home cinema rather than dedicated TV speakers like the HomePod 2s. Now both options will elevate a Sonos home cinema setup, but the 300s in particular, with their upwards firing capability, take your content to another level of immersion. So although Apple wins this contest for TV audio, if you're a real movie and TV lover with a bigger budget or room to grow your setup over time, then Sonos will provide a more extensive and immersive home cinema solution. Now that's not to say that Apple might not change that in the future, but if we're talking as of right now, if you're looking for an ecosystem to invest in over time, Sonos is definitely the better option on this one. But look guys, there's obviously plenty of things to think about when we compare these three speakers. In terms of the whole Sonos versus Apple debate, I think the addition of line-in and Bluetooth are just further examples of Sonos one-upping Apple as the more agnostic ecosystem option of the two, and I don't see these things changing anytime soon. But if you're already immersed in Apple and Siri, then I don't think you'll struggle to get on with the HomePod 2. They've got some great features that I'm a big fan of, and if that's what you're after, it's an ideal option. But if that's not how you roll or you're coming in cold, then I think Sonos is where you'll be better suited. I know you guys love to find a winner when it comes to these things. So for those looking for the flexibility of TV audio and music listening and own an Apple TV, it's a no-brainer. The HomePod wins hands down. If Sonos offered a dedicated TV solution from either the 100 or 300, then maybe that might change things. But looking at the whole packages you get from these speakers, I see the results of this comparison like a pyramid. I think at the base, you've got the Era 100 and the HomePod 2. They both excel in different areas, which hopefully I've highlighted for you, and depending on what your non-negotiables are or which camp you sit in, you should be able to make the best decision for you. The Era 300 though is different, and this really is the pinnacle of this trio. If you want the best, this is it. It's leading the way for spatial audio and takes room-filling, three-dimensional audio to a completely new level that we haven't seen before from a smart speaker. And so if you can make the most of that with Atmos tracks, will benefit from the perks of the Sonos ecosystem and have the means, then I think it's worth the extra budget required. But I'd love to hear what you guys think, so please let me know down in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.